Hey guys, Brent here,
I'm Chris.
and this is
Brent and Chris Talk.
We Talk.
Do.
We're back to talk.
So, you may notice from the title of the episode, we'll be touching on the impeachment again.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable in the fact that so much has continued to happen.
Yeah.
And it's just, with the news cycle the way it is, crazy pace.
I assure you this won't be our last show on
No,
the impeachment.
that's just it. I mean, it keeps happening. I mean, it's not going to go away. And I think everyone keeps thinking the conclusion is foregone. But guess what? Nobody knows what's going to happen in the end. And as it plays out, there's interesting tidbits to take into consideration, and we're going to cover those.
Yeah, Brent's got a good overview of like historical context, and I'll have the latest evidence that's been out from a Bill Taylor's deposition.
Updating us on the most critical elements of what's been said so far that we know about.
Yes. So first, how was your week?
The week was filled with painting a new bunk bed for my kids, which is up right now. It's 98% done. I had to do some touch-up painting once we got it put together. I'm sure we're not done with that. These kids have no idea how lucky they are that I not only my wife and I bought this thing, but we put in, I'd say, 2 solid weeks of painting and taping and repainting and clear coating.
It looks like a mini 2-story house.
It's like a copy of what I would want to live in if I was in Florida on the beach. It's so awesome.
You may not live in Florida because Florida has a new resident.
I know. That just makes it much less likely I'd ever live there. That's for sure.
Honestly, it makes so many other things make sense, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like, instead of President Trump did this today, just insert Florida man did this today.
Florida man says. Florida man
says.
does. Florida man is.
We never talked about this. Last year we did Halloween together. How was your Halloween this year? It was snowing here.
Yes.
If you're listening not from around.
Yeah. Well, Warren and I watched train videos inside because he refused to put on his cold weather gear.
Sure.
Threw a fit. And Eleanor and Courtney went out for a solid hour in the blizzard.
Yep.
Blowing, snowing, frozenness that it was, and they got a ton of candy, probably because there wasn't a ton of kids out.
So they're getting handfuls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Full-size stuff. It's like, I got yelled at. I am throwing my wife under the bus for that. I got yelled at for trying to steal some of the Snickers bars, because apparently they can eat them now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You know,
I deal with that.
Live and learn.
So, your week?
You know, it was good. I'm trying to think. I hate to admit it.
Was it a blur?
It was just a blur.
Like,
but
I have arrived at Sunday, and here we are. Don't know how I got here.
School is just busy. I mean, school is just going fast, and assignments are vast. We had to research, I think it was 3 or 4 local businesses, and do their market demographics, and then write taglines for those businesses to target those demographics. And we had to write a entire jingle for a company. And
then record it. That's part of your...
You know, honestly, we did not have to record it this week. It's a saving grace. But just coming up with the jingle was enough. And he wanted to have a say before we got that far, if it was good or if it needed to get tailored to better fit the brief.
So you got a first pass, and then you had to maybe go back?
Yeah, luckily my first pass got approved.
Wow. See, it's kind of painful to me
good.
Because not being an everyday artist kind of person feels like the natural flow of creation would be interrupted by forcing it to be into some box.
No, it is. Very apt. It is. And that's tough. And that's why it's like it's a hard thing to tell somebody. Like, my homework is to write a song or a jingle. I don't know how long that takes. Sometimes it doesn't take very long. Sometimes it takes too long. And sometimes you're just like, here are words. I have to get this in by the deadline.
Right. Whether or not they may jingle.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm laughing. It's not funny.
No,
it's just
it is what it is. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, if you can tick the boxes of the, well, I can't think, what's the grading thing? The rubric. If you can tick all the boxes, you know, you get the grade. So.
Yeah. Cool. So it happened.
This week happened. And Halloween,
Yeah.
my grandma is in a nursing home right now.
Okay.
And so we took the kids to see her. And it was just, A, all inside, so plus there.
Yeah.
B, these, my kids go to stay with my mom a lot. They'll watch them during the day instead of daycare or anything.
Right.
And so she'll take them to see my grandma a lot. So it was interesting to see my kids knew a lot of the people.
Oh yeah,
the
they're rolling in
home.
and like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
And you're like, who are these people?
Yeah, so they got hooked up with the
That's
candy
cool.
and everything.
Good.
And then I was in the room for a while with my grandma. I was helping her find something, and Harrison had like vanished. And Chelsea's like, "Where is he?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Hopefully in the house still.
It's a pretty secure place. You can't get out without alarms going off.
Well, that's good.
And he was in the diner hall with one of the people that was friends with my grandma.
He's like, I'm gonna go chill with them for a while.
Yeah, and
That's
she
cool.
said, yeah, he walked right in here, saw me, his face lit up, came and sat at the table with me.
Cool.
Like, that's sweet.
Yeah, that is nice.
So, again, they had the entire dining room when we first got there set up for trick-or-treaters.
Okay. So it was like a parade kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, super sweet. Worked out really good. And then we spent a lot of time there. We spent a few hours there. And the kids probably went through a few times. But lots of candy was acquired. And then we stopped at a church's trunk or treat. But again, it was so cold, they moved it inside.
Yeah.
I have a small complaint. I'm not going to say which church because not my beef.
Sure.
But you've been to trunk or treats.
Oh, yes. We went to like 4 this year.
I've been to trunk or treats.
Yeah.
They are cars, or if they're inside, little table set
Stands.
up where you get candy.
Go
And you
around.
go. Nothing like that. First off, you had to sign in. Don't like that.
Yeah. Like,
Feel a little Ron Swanson-y here,
a lot
but
of information or
huh?
a lot of information?
Name and address. They want you to be on the mailing list.
I don't want to be on the mailing list.
Right. That's not why I'm here. That's not why I'm bringing my kids here.
Yeah.
If I like what you're presenting, I will come back.
Yeah.
You know?
Shouldn't force that.
Shouldn't force that. We get inside, it's all games. Like throw the ring on
I've
the
never-
stand,
I mean,
and then they had hot
I've seen
dogs
that,
there.
but that's, like,
they
part
had
of the-
popcorn. I mean, it gave kids something to do outside of the cold. I can see the merit in that. But my kid is 2.5, almost 3. Gosh.
Yeah.
And my daughter, that's scary. I almost have a 3-year-old parent moment. And my daughter's 1.5, so not beneficial for them. And Harry just loved the kid, ran right up, cut everybody in line. He's like, I'll go. And he just took it and started
If I have
going.
to. Yeah. Someone's got to do it.
I know how this works.
That's awesome.
So, and that was good. The one sweetest thing, he didn't get very many Reese's. He had one or two, and he was eating them. And I said, "Oh, those are Dad's favorite. I love Reese's too." And he goes, "Here, Dad," and he just gave me his Reese's, halfway eaten.
Oh yeah, those are the best. Though.
I know. I'm like, "Do you like them?" He goes, "Oh yeah, but you can share." That's
nice.
Happy. I'm happy with my kids.
So you are one of the favored ones. You get the gift of Reese's.
Yes, yes.
The precious.
So, yeah. So it was good. Harrison was a vampire, which
that's cool.
A lot of people got a kick out of that. I couldn't find a kid's cowl. I don't know what I think to call it.
Yeah.
Cape, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
So I bought a women's one because they're a little smaller, and I cut it, but the hood came all the way down to here on him. Kind of looked like a cool thing. It meant to look like that. Kind of looked like a dress. Kind of looked like a homemade Halloween costume.
You know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Mm-mm.
I really appreciate the homemade outfits. I mean, I think it was Courtney, my wife, commented to me that she saw a lot less of the homemade stuff this year. Which, if you're going to put time into that, I mean, God love you, because that's cool. I appreciate people that do that. And I mean, hey,
yeah,
it's the time and effort and
that's the thing.
thoughtfulness.
I'm all about making my kids' costume if they want to be something I can make.
Yeah.
The vampire thing was easy. He had the tuxedo shirt, so easy, long sleeve,
done.
To win.
Nice.
And we got him the vampire teeth. He wasn't a fan of those.
Right.
But we got some cute
weird.
Pictures. And so I ended up wearing those. So I'm like, I'm the vampire.
If I have to.
Right. And we bought him one of those big like an amulet necklace.
Oh yeah. Is that what Evelyn's wearing?
Yeah.
Upstairs? Yeah.
Yeah. So now Evelyn's wearing
Precious.
it. And
Amulet.
she looks like Mr.
To
T
ward-
or something.
Yeah, right?
Cracks me up.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Honestly, I have to say it's probably my favorite Halloween ever. Kids have made Halloween a super fun holiday. I was never a big fan. Now I'm pretty on board.
Yeah, I agree.
So
It's awesome.
it's almost 10 minutes. So let's dive in.
Yeah, man. I think it is definitely a good time to get into more of what's going on with the impeachment. So, what I want to talk about, I've seen a lot of questions about, and not just like people that are viewing. If you sent some, thank you. I haven't seen them, but at the end of the day, I've seen a lot of people commenting about what I would consider as a question, and that's more about what's going on in terms of the context of what we're seeing today versus what's happened in the past. And historically, um, there's not like a, you used the word rubric earlier. There's not like a template. There's not a a set standard for how and we've talked about this. You should see the first impeachment episode if you have not, because
Link somewhere.
yeah,
Because I can do that now. Because I'm too savvy.
It's important if you haven't, because it gives you a lot more information critically about the Constitution. But the Constitution's kind of vague. We'll just leave it at that. And in the sense that since that document was laid down and written and set forth as the foundation, it's more like a legal precedent has been created for how the impeachment process unfolds.
It's
And
a couple sentences in the Constitution, right? Or
well,
a sentence?
yeah, I mean, you might be generous and call it a paragraph,
Sure.
but really, there's not like a ton of instruction on what to do.
Yeah, that's not a hand guide.
Right.
For impeachment.
And so that was a major issue during the first impeachment trial of Johnson,
Sure.
Andrew Johnson. I mean, they really had to kind of create their own framework for what they were going to do. And today, that's what's being done, is the Democrats are pulling on what has been done from mainly the Nixon and Clinton impeachment proceedings. And so that's the framework they're working within. Is either of those impeachment proceedings framework being followed to the T? No, because we have arrived, and I'll get into this in more detail. We have arrived at impeachment in this instance through a different set of circumstances.
Yeah.
Different events have gotten us to this point. And so, I think it's probably most important. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about Nixon and Clinton, and then compare them to Trump. What's going on today? I want to give some context. I want to talk about the president's popularity, the popularity of impeachment, and then the outcomes. Politically, what was going on, and as an outcome of what was done. So, and I think it's important. Again, go back to the original impeachment episode if you don't know a lot about what happened during the Nixon and Clinton impeachment proceedings, because I'm not going to touch on everything. I'm more going to just literally talk about some context to give you guys a basis, and we're going to go into it. So for Nixon, really the case against him for impeachment was largely, and not entirely, but largely based on the Watergate scandal and what unfolded. And that's the other part of it. What unfolded from there, what he did. It basically, what we had was a situation where there were tape recording devices in the White House, and those picked up conversations he was having throughout his administration.
Yep.
And critically, for the people that were investigating and prosecuting him, he taped himself directly asking his donors to his re-election campaign to perjure themselves. That's the big thing that they got him on in the articles of impeachment. He was directly involved in the burglary at the DNC and supported that.
Yeah, at the Watergate
Hotel. At the Watergate Hotel. And so, that's really what was built up, and that triggered that event. The burglary triggered the series of events that followed that, basically got to the impeachment proceedings that never really got into full fruition, I guess, right? For lack of a better way of putting it. They were investigating, but did they get to a vote?
See, that's where I feel bad if you get a little fuzzy too. I thought that the House had impeached him, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't remember. I don't think there was a vote. I think the
Republicans in the Senate were signaling you don't have enough votes.
He lost support.
He lost support.
Clearly, they told him they weren't going to support him,
and that's
when he resigned.
Yeah.
So it never got to a full impeachment proceeding. So Nixon's popularity.
I have a pen.
Oh, nice. back in 1974, then his popularity in August was 49.1%.
And this is an election year.
Yes.
Yeah.
At its peak, his popularity had been about 66%.
That's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, and that is good. We'll give you some context with other presidents, but at his peak, his popularity was at 66%. And so, on average, he's sitting around that 49, 50 percentile. And really, it was kind of like a wave he was riding during his presidency. He sort of hit a peak, and then as Watergate happened, that's when it kind of started this downward trend. And it's amazing when you look at the data. It wasn't like especially with Congress, it wasn't like a major swing. The public opinion of him swung more quickly, especially as they got further into the investigation and more was coming out about.
It was the trials.
Correct.
It was actually impeachment trials that the House was doing.
Well, they're depositions.
Yeah, but they were public hearings.
Correct.
And yeah, right. When the truth was made public.
Yep.
And the thing I keep hearing pushback from that, though, I'm sorry if you don't mind.
No, go for it.
Is that when that happened, there were 4 television stations.
Right.
And people really didn't have much else to watch. People were far more engaged.
Right. And so a lot less polarized because of less information. I think they kind of let it just kind of unfold. So impeachment wasn't overly popular until right before he resigned.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, mainly in August of 1974, like I was mentioning, he's at 49.1%. That's 10 months after the Watergate burglary. So he was riding that high, and he's still down to right around that 50th percentile. 10 months after the burglary happened. Yeah. So they're starting to piece it all together. And basically, the popularity of impeachment increased particularly after he had to release the recording showing he was directly involved in the cover-up after Watergate. It's when they started, during the depositions, they started asking more questions. I believe it was one of his assistants that had admitted there was the tape recording system, and that's when they started demanding the tapes. And Nixon at first resisted that. He
tried to claim it would affect executive
national security.
And national security.
Yeah, and so
that's a fun video to watch. You can find that on YouTube.
Oh man, and I can't remember the guy's. Oh, Archibald Cox.
Mm-hmm.
He was really his situation. He was the original investigator, independent counsel, like the Ken Starr for the Nixon impeachment, and basically because he was fighting to get those tapes, it became a huge PR disaster for Nixon. That's really when his popularity took a tailspin, and impeachment became extremely popular because he pushed for the firing of the independent counsel, and that created a PR disaster because it just destroyed his credibility. And so Nixon's actions throughout all of this were clearly political for everyone to see, because he was just he was throwing out the people that were complicit with him for the Justice Department. Like, there were lots of his aides, his chief of staff went to prison.
Yeah.
Bob Haldeman.
And Vice President had to resign?
He did resign.
Spiro
Agnew, yeah. And then there was I think his Attorney General also resigned because of all of his actions.
Yeah, I can't remember what that was called. They called that something, like the Sunday...
Like massacre or something.
I know, that's probably something way more historically
significant. And I mean, honestly, we...
go back and watch our episode on impeachment. We talk about it all there.
Yeah, right, exactly. So go back if you want the additional detail there. Because we researched that side of it for this. This is more context, right? So he went and fired the special counsel, which destroyed his credibility.
Yep.
And that's when his credibility takes his tailspin. The Republicans in Congress say they can't support him, and so he sees the writing on the wall. He's not going to survive an impeachment trial. He's going to be impeached, and then he might be removed from office, right? So he resigned, and that's just it. So the outcome was that he got forced into resigning his presidency. His vice president, Gerald Ford, did not resign. Spiro Agnew, I think, was the Attorney General. I think that's what was going on.
I was under the impression Spiro Agnew. Gosh, I feel bad. I wrote it all down. Spiro Agnew had resigned. You're right. You're right.
Because Ford was his vice president.
But I thought Ford got lifted up to the office out of another position when Spiro Agnew resigned.
We may need to look that up and provide some additional research.
We'll go back to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's not... Or
go back and watch the episode. We'll go watch our episode too.
Right, that's not as critical
it's
as...
in this book right behind
as
you,
Vice President Ford, though, after he... and the other thing that happened, mainly, right? Vice President Ford got elevated to the presidency. He pardoned Nixon.
Yep.
And that's what cost him the next election.
Yep.
Right? The Republicans also, subsequently, because of their actions supporting Nixon up to the end, they lost 49 seats in the House in the upcoming election and 5 seats in the Senate.
But would have been 74, I think.
They lost their majority.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, he resigned in August. Elections are November. It's not great timing.
Talk about trashing everything, your chances on that. So, just to give you some idea, though, and I got most of that from 538. They had a couple really good articles that will supply on this. I did other research, too, just Wikipedia. The House has records, and really, I think it's nice to watch videos on it, too. I did some of that as well. So, that's, again, giving some context on how they got to and through Nixon, like what happened to him, right?
Yeah.
So let's go on to Clinton. Let's talk about Clinton some, right? Again, 538 had a really good article comparing the two. That was my main source on this one. But really, the case against Clinton was Ken Starr, the independent counsel. It was him, his report, right? In all of what they dug up on the Monica Lewinsky, the scandal that involved Monica Lewinsky and Linda Tripp, basically dug up all of his history with women, and he did some bad things. Absolutely. He compromised himself personally. And I think that's the difference between Nixon and right now Trump, right? He compromised himself in his personal life, and it was not for political gain that he was trying to cover that up. He was covering it up to save his marriage, save his persona, and himself. And, there is a political aspect to that. I may have to take that back. It didn't destroy him, though, politically. I'm going to talk about that some, too. But Ken Starr's report and what happened in the Senate trial with that was largely what tried to crush Clinton.
Yeah.
But Clinton was super popular. His popularity, approval throughout 1998 was 60 to 70%, right? And just get this, after the impeachment, 67%.
Yeah. I was going to say, I thought it went up. It was down a little bit and then went up.
I'm just saying 60 to 70% through 98, but after impeachment, it was going up to 67%.
Yeah, they took forever. They meandered. They didn't. Kenneth Starr started with the Travelgate Whitewater, and he meandered through cause after cause after cause, and finally it was like because of a lady named Paula Jones who came forward.
Right, and so all they could really reveal was that he lied publicly under oath that he had these affairs, which he did lie. That was wrong, absolutely. But he lied to protect himself personally. There was nothing that he was trying to do that was to directly influence anybody politically.
Amen.
And so the impeachment side of it was not super popular. Only 48% of people approved of it at the peak of the impeachment proceedings. And I think it was about an average of 40% over the course of it. But that's just it. Clinton's impeachment seemed to be a personal matter. And the outcome really was that there was impeachment in the House, but there was no removal from office, because I think it was largely the fact that people made the calculation.
It was close.
It was not popular.
Yeah.
So, and the interesting thing is the backlash. So Clinton's super popular coming out of it, right? And the backlash against the Republicans for doing the meandering and not making anything really largely politically out of it, it cost the speaker, Newt Gingrich, his speakership, right? And the Republicans lost 5 seats in the House in the midterm elections. The Senate, there was some losses and gains on both sides, but it was basically a wash. So think about that. There's something to be learned from it being a BS proceeding. It has to be good, or the public is going to make you pay.
Yeah. No, absolutely true.
And so let's go into some context on the current proceedings against Trump.
Sure.
So Trump's is really based on real, like right now we're living it, right? Real time accusations of crime, and I think really the scope is that call with the Ukrainian president and what is perceived to be a quid pro quo. From deposition, you'll talk about explaining how it goes beyond just those two's discussion.
And quid pro quo simply means this for that.
Correct.
Which I could go to Walmart, I pay for my items. They try to ask me, no.
They're not directly holding it over your head.
Yeah, that's a quid pro quo. It's fine. That's an acceptable quid pro quo.
Yep, a transaction.
Transaction. If a boss tries to sexually exploit a worker,
yep,
so she or he can keep their job, that's also a quid pro quo. That's a bad quid pro quo.
Yep. Unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Cannot hold something over people's head legally.
Yes.
Especially taxpayer dollars, and that's what we're talking about. So we're going to get into that. I won't steal your thunder.
No.
So we're talking about real time, like the Democrats had that. They've investigated Trump for lots of different things, related to taxes. They've investigated him related to the emoluments clauses.
That's ongoing investigations.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so we don't know the outcomes there. But that's just to be said that there's things that have kind of led up to this that they've been pushing. And now that they had this trigger, I would call it trigger event with the whistleblower.
Yep.
And so since then, there's more and more they've dug up through testimony. And you'll get into that. And so from that, though, it's just kind of, it's not just something that happened over time. It just happened, and now we're learning about the context of what was leading up to that. It wasn't like an affair that happened over the course of months. It wasn't a planned and executed burglary that happened, and then all of a sudden 10 months later we directly implicate the president. Like, the president did something, a whistleblower raised the flag, reported it, and now, not within a lot of time, we're already investigating the president for impeachment. Trump, popularity-wise, and I looked at Gallup. That's what I used for my measure on all three of these Gallup polls. He's not overly popular, especially compared to Nixon or Clinton. His popularity is ranged at about 40% on average throughout his presidency. It was at 46% at its peak. And as of the 1st of October, his popularity is at 39%. So 39% of the country right now approves of the president according to Gallup polls, which is a legitimate polling organization. They have good articles about this stuff that's going on now too. The impeachment support side of it is interesting too. It's sort of changed over time, but as of the 16th, 52% of people approve of impeachment proceedings against President Trump. Now, that, again, remind you, impeachment was only at 48% against Nixon at its peak, and for Clinton, impeachment was only at... Did I write that down?
I didn't hear you say that.
No, I may not have. It was not overly popular.
No, you maybe did. Public approval was low, I know, for the Clinton impeachment.
Correct.
40-something, maybe, at the end. I do remember now.
Wait.
Oh, that was popularity. I mean, it's popularity after the impeachment.
Right, yeah, that's just it. So,
processing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, throw that whole thing into the wind there. But at the end of the day, the president's not popular, and impeachment is popular. It's over 50%. Now, is it an overwhelming majority? No. Yep. But compared in historical context, when presidents are popular, and the impeachment proceedings are not overly popular until something happened in Nixon's case, it's interesting. We've never had this happen.
Can I be the negative Nancy?
Go for it.
I've been watching a lot of Fox. Not proud, but I've been called out a few times on my sources being bad, and I'm really fascinated by that. But I've really been trying to dive in to really see what the opposition, I'm going to call that,
the other side.
The other side.
Other opinions.
I'm calling opposition because I feel like they're opposed truth, fact, logic.
Can be.
Yeah, so.
Yep.
The truth of the matter is, if you look at the swing states in which matter in the election coming up, 2020,
Yep.
they don't care about the impeachment.
Sure.
Overall, they don't like it.
Sure.
If you talk about Pennsylvania, Ohio, Arizona, and I can't remember the other one, but all of those states have really no interest in the impeachment proceedings, and Trump still has a decent approval rating there.
Yeah.
So when Trump's talking about polls, you have to be honest, like, Trump is an amazing politician. He really is. He is only thinking about the states that matter to him.
Sure.
He's treating it like a game, not like it's anything else.
Sure.
I don't condone that as greatness. I think that is just...
Play the game.
He's playing the game.
As he did in business.
Yes. And
So.
he seems to be playing a little bit better in politics because the other thing we have to look at was... I don't want to step on your thunder. Do you
No, you're good.
Okay.
I was wrapping up.
Okay. The other thing...
I guess the last thing I was going to say,
Yeah.
if I may, Trump's actions are largely and truly seen as partisan. It's political.
So glad you said that.
So, I mean, that's all it is.
Such a good segue.
It's not
Brent.
personal. So,
We didn't even plan this. I love, the one thing me and Brent do really good, I feel like, is we never give you BS reactions. I truly don't know what he's going to say. He does not know what I'm going to say. We tell each other a rough idea of where the information's taking us, just so we're not repeating each other.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I'm honestly learning.
That's how the conversations
As you're
always have
learning.
gone. So.
Yeah, and that's an honest thing. I hate listening to those radio shows, and they're like, "Oh, you don't say. I can't believe that." And then 3 sentences later, they have this opinion that they've obviously had for a while. For, well, I've always thought this, and this. Oh, so you did know about it?
Yeah.
I just think that's tacky.
Can be.
So, again, I'm calling this impeachment 3. The third time we've done an update.
Yeah, we did an update one time before, and
that's great to put all the things there because the problem again is the swing states in this case. Like, it's just how do we make those people care? Because it's great that we have, how much? 60% of the country?
that's what?
In favor of impeachment right now?
52%.
52?
Yep.
But again, it's just like the popular vote. It doesn't matter.
Correct.
And, like, the only time it does matter, apparently, is for the Democrats, because there were no Republicans that voted yes for the impeachment proceedings.
Correct.
And only two Democrats did.
Two Democrats voted no.
Yes, voted no.
Against.
And, again, that makes it look like a partisan attack now from the Democrats.
Well, and I think they were going on. I can't remember. Are they vulnerable in their elections? No, just those two that said no.
Yes. One of them, well, yes.
I don't know.
One of them is in a district that voted for Trump over Hillary 30 points.
Okay.
So, Trump landed
Trying to save him. Yeah.
And again, that's why I don't like politics. If you're just worried about getting reelected, I don't know. Quid pro quos, again, not always bad. The one thing I am going to do, too, is defend Mick Mulvaney when he said, it happens all the time. Get used to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I
think a lot of what he said was stupid, but I mean that
mainstream media has jumped all over that. The first time I heard it, too, I was like, but then it's just honest. It is done all the time.
Correct. That wasn't the problem with what he said.
No, not at all. It's how he described it.
Correct.
But Jimmy Carter made Egypt make peace with Israel to get aid. That is a quid pro quo.
Mm-hmm.
President George W. Bush would make countries give their citizens free speech and freedom of assembly before getting some kinds of U.S. aid. Mm-hmm. Also a quid pro quo.
Yep. So they wanted to, in one instance, garner peace.
Yep.
And in another instance, garner free speech for their citizenry.
Evil.
Not investigate
evil.
a political rival.
I know.
Okay.
So
okay,
that's
just making sure that's what you were saying, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So Mick Mulvaney is right. Quid pro quos do happen all the time.
Heck yeah, they do.
Not partisan ones. And I will lay this all out for you.
benefit just one freaking person.
I need to tell you about 2 people, and that is actually 3 people I'm going to talk about. A guy named Bill Taylor.
Yep.
Now, Bill Taylor is a career diplomat. He's worked for both Republican and Democratic administrations. Mike Pompeo, Trump's dude there, pulled Taylor out of retirement to run diplomacy in Ukraine.
Yep.
So that, you find a pen. I know, pens are so important.
So important.
So that's Bill Taylor. The other person I want to talk about is this guy named Gordon Sondland. Gordon Sondland is our diplomat to the EU. What are Gordon Sondland's qualifications, Brent, you might ask?
I do ask. Chris, can I ask you, what are Gordon Sondland's qualifications?
Thank you, Brent. Well, he's the founder and chair of Providence Hotels, and he gave over $1 million to President Donald Trump in his 2016 election bid.
I'm completely sold that he is a very qualified diplomat, and he should be our ambassador to the EU.
He should.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about these two people, and
Nice.
And we're also going to talk about the third person, which is none other than a few pages away. I don't remember his first name. Alexander.
First names are important.
Alexander, what's his name?
Graham Bell.
Vindman.
No.
Alexander
Vindman, huh?
So, and he is a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army.
Yep.
Now, the backstory on him...
Sounds like a Russian spy.
He was born in Ukraine.
Of course.
And he served in the U.S. Army from 1999 to present. He fought in the Iraqi War, where he received a Purple Heart.
Yeah, people who take wounds for the country generally don't spy for the enemy.
Oh, listen to the Republicans throw him under the bus, along with Bill Taylor, who is a career politician. They asked him to come out of retirement to oversee Ukraine diplomacy after Yovanovitch was pulled out of there for no apparent reason other than Trump had lost faith in her.
So, I have to say this. I find it incredibly interesting and disturbing, I told you this, that the Republican tactic is just to go after these people even before they've testified or offered their testimony. They just completely go to discredit them. So why are you trying to do that before they even testify, one, when these people on the surface should be trusted? Because A, they were acting in a diplomatic capacity in both cases.
Yep.
Up and still are, I believe.
I don't know about Bill Taylor.
Vindman, for sure, should be.
Yes, Vindman is. Vindman's an important dude. We'll get to him.
And so,
He's
if they're trusted enough to do that work, why on earth would you just try to destroy them before they even talk? And then after, of course, because of this political ramifications, of course they're going to go after him. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth, right? We just kind of expect that to happen. But it's sort of pathetic, right? It's the same thing as everyone saying it's a sham proceeding and you can't do this. Well, guess what, guys? The framework, like I just said, is there. This is not a sham. It's the way the founders laid it down. We're following the law.
Charges, you attack the process.
Correct. And
I just watched that OJ thing. It's so good.
And freaking, both sides just, and I'm saying both sides, Republicans and Democrats, set up these different rules. They take them down, and the other side gets mad, and the next thing you know, it's them fighting it out over that stuff. And it's just one more case of that happening in a lot of instances.
No, absolutely.
Not without merit, though.
So a lot of the information, most of the information I'm going to give you right now is from Bill Taylor's opening statement, which got leaked to the press, and he was testifying before House committees in charge of the impeachment proceedings on October 22nd.
Okay.
So, in there, Taylor refers to a text from September 9th as it goes, "As I said on the phone, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign," end quote. And that was to Gordon Sondland, our EU diplomat. He wrote back, "Bill, I believe you are incorrect about President Trump's intentions. The president has been crystal clear. No quid pro quo of any kind. The president trying to evaluate whether Ukraine is going to adopt the transparency and reforms that President Zelensky promised during his campaign. I suggest we stop the back and forth by text. If you still have concerns, I recommend you give Lisa Kenna or S a call to discuss with them directly." Why would you want a written record of all of this?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So Taylor went on to say in his statement that Ukraine depends on this aid. and withholding it is crazy.
It's a big deal.
And since I have the dates, I'm not going to skip ahead. I'll give you real facts as I get there.
Real facts.
So in June, Taylor gave Zelensky, on behalf of Trump, a congratulatory letter.
Yep.
And he invited him to the Oval Office if he did a few things first. This is in the letter from Trump that Taylor gave.
Yeah. Okay.
So there was a planned call on June 28th.
All right.
With Ukrainian President Zelensky, and Taylor testified that Ambassador Sondland did not wish to include most of the regular interagency participants, and, quote, said that he wanted to make sure no one was transcribing or monitoring as they added Zelensky to the call, end quote.
Okay.
It
Don't want it on record.
Right. And it didn't take long for Taylor to realize that, quote, the meeting President Zelensky wanted was conditioned on the investigations of Burisma and alleged Ukrainian interference in the 2016 elections.
Huh. Isn't that Ukrainian interference like a debunked conspiracy theory?
Oh, yeah. It's nonsensical. Something off, 8chan, I think that's the thing or something.
Yeah.
So he also testified, that this whole thing was being kind of led by Giuliani, the Trump's personal lawyer, not the proper diplomatic channels that are in place if Trump really wanted to do that.
Right. Why have a shadow?
Ukraine. Yes.
Shadow international
foreign
policy.
Yes.
Foreign policy. Yeah.
Yes. So now there's this other meeting. I think this is interesting. July 18th, though, so 7/18, an individual from the OMB, which is Office of Management Budget.
Yep.
Okay, so an individual from the OMB kind of notifies Taylor that the security aid to Ukraine had been put on hold, and they didn't know why. So after Taylor kind of pressed a little more, the lady at the OMB said her boss had instructed her not to approve any additional spending of security assistance for Ukraine until further notice. So that's 7/18. Okay?
Okay.
Now,
mid-July.
Yes. The source also said that the order came from Trump through Mulvaney to the OMB's chief of staff.
Wow.
That's, and this is sworn testimony. Okay? So Taylor also testified that the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the CIA Director, and the National Security Director, all of them tried to sit down with Trump to convince him to release the hold on the money. So there's a lot of fun names that we've fun to look up. So what Trump wanted Zelensky to say was, quote, to say he will help with the investigation and address any specific personnel issues if there were any.
Wow.
Now, Trump's administration even tried to script Zelensky, basically saying they wanted Zelensky to say, I will leave no stone unturned in regards to investigations. And now, this is interesting. Zelensky's response, according to Taylor, was he did not want to be used as a pawn in a U.S. re-election scheme. So the president of Ukraine tells Bill Taylor, who came out of retirement on behalf of Mike Pompeo to deal with the diplomacy issues in Ukraine, that he does not want to be a pawn. So why did he think he was being a pawn in a re-election thing?
Oh, man.
In the last 5 years,
damning,
more than 13,000 Ukrainians have been killed by Russian forces.
Not surprising.
And according to Newsweek, at least 13 Ukrainian soldiers died while aid was frozen. I mean, and it's impossible to say that the aid
you can't
would
directly
stop
tie that in there, but hey, it's not helping.
But it draws your draws your view or your
attention.
thought. Yes, thank you. Your attention to the fact that this aid is really important for them. This fight is, wow, I'm stuttering. This fight is very ongoing and every day for them, and they depend on this money. So Taylor was greatly concerned, and he was worried that Ukraine would end up with nothing because, did I skip stuff? Yes, because the security assistance actually had an expiration date. And if it was not used by September 30th, the end of the fiscal year, the funds would basically just disappear or expire, and they wouldn't get anything. So Taylor knows this, and he's very concerned. And according to Sondland, the security assistance would not come until President Zelensky committed to pursue the Burisma investigation.
Why? See, that's just it. Why did it have to be defense spending? Why couldn't it be something else?
Trump
why
doesn't have anything.
Well, I'm just saying, why did it have to be? Well, if there's merit there, let's just say it's the perfect call.
Yes.
If there's merit there.
Because Giuliani had came out and said that I am just trying to gather information to protect my client. If I was defending...
Not the United States.
Correct. Yes. And this is, again, everyone, this is the problem. Giuliani is basically running a shadow foreign policy that only benefits Trump.
Yep.
This is to benefit Trump. People have died because Trump withheld money in order to try to secure nonsensical information.
And people call Hillary Clinton an assassin.
Right. Right. So,
wow. Okay.
Now, again, according to Sondland, the security assistance would not come until President Zelensky committed to pursue the Burisma investigation. This confirmed...
But why that company? My gosh, so many questions.
Well, Burisma was where...
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, why not some other company?
I know.
Why not all oil companies?
Because it was just the Bidens. It was just a political tool. But we'll get there.
I'm sorry, I'm just dying here.
Yeah, I know. We'll get there.
I'll shut up.
This confirmed that not only the Oval Office... Okay, sorry. This confirmed that not only the Oval Office meeting that Zelensky wanted, but the security security assistance, was conditioned on Zelensky investigating Burisma. From Taylor's testimony in the opening statement, he confirmed that there was a quid pro quo. He confirmed that the order came from the president. He confirmed that the purpose was to gather information on the Bidens, and the White House tried to hide the involvement. What else? What else do you need? I have more.
I was going to say, what else do you need? Not a whole lot, but I mean, I'm guessing there's more.
So,
what else, Chris?
Allegedly, when Gordon Sondland testified, he could not specifically recall about what Bill Taylor testified. He also did not refute most of it.
Yeah. Huh.
That brings us to Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman.
Yep.
Vindman. Vindman.
Vindman.
Yeah, it's fun to say.
Yeah.
So again, born in Ukraine, but obviously moved up through the ranks in the U.S. Army.
Trusted enough to be a high-level diplomat.
An Army officer assigned to the National Security Council.
Sounds pretty important.
He's on the NSC. So he was actually in the Situation Room on the call with Trump and Zelensky. Now we're to the phone call.
Yep.
We've made it to the phone call. Now, according to Vindman, in his opening statements, he largely backed the whistleblower's account. Something you'll hear Trump say, how come there's no one else coming forward? Well, this guy did come forward.
And they were complaining about it not being a first-hand account. This is a first-hand account.
This is a first-hand account.
Yep.
And just for the record, this is the only time he came forward, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Now, quote from Vindman, quote, I was concerned by the call. I did not think it was proper to demand that a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen, and I was worried about the implications for U.S. government support for Ukraine. I realized that if Ukraine pursued an investigation into the Bidens or Burisma, it would likely be interpreted as a partisan play, which would undoubtedly result in Ukraine losing the bipartisan support it has thus far maintained. This would undermine U.S. national security. Following the call, I again reported my concerns to NSC's lead counsel.
There you go.
So he did come forward.
To the council.
To the council.
At the NSC.
Vindman's deposition lasted 10 and a half hours.
Jeez.
And according to the New York Times, in it, he had after the phone call, he had requested several changes in the readout of the transcript, and all of them were denied by the White House.
Of course.
Without reason. Vindman also gave testimony about a visit from Ukraine's Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council. He came to D.C. to meet with National Security Advisor Bolton and Ambassadors Volkert Sondland were also there, along with Energy Secretary Rick Perry. Didn't Rick Perry step down?
If he resigned or he's
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's out yet, but
I think this is probably why.
So another rat deserting a sinking ship.
Vindman said, quote, "The meeting proceeded well until the Ukrainians broached the subject of a meeting between the two presidents. Ambassador Sondland started talking about Ukraine delivering specific investigations in order to secure the meeting with the president, at which time Ambassador Bolton cut the meeting short. Advisor Bolton cut the meeting short. Following the meeting, there was a scheduled debriefing, which Ambassador Sondland emphasized the importance that Ukraine deliver the investigations into the 2016 election, the Bidens and Burisma. I stated to Ambassador Sondland that his statements were inappropriate, that the request to investigate Biden and his son had nothing to do with national security, and that such investigations were not something the NSC was going to get involved in or push. Dr. Hill then entered and asserted Ambassador Sondland's statements were also inappropriate. Following the debriefing, I reported my concerns to the NSC's lead counsel. Dr. Hill did as well. Vindman's testimony backs up Taylor's and disputes Sondland's. So, who should we trust here? A career soldier who served his country for
took
20 years
some sort
now?
of bullet or something for his
30
country.
years.
Was wounded for his country.
Yeah. Right. And wounded for his country. 30 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I can do math. And a career politician that has spent tons of time in Ukraine and was pulled out of retirement by Trump's administration.
Yes.
Or do we believe the hotelier? Thank you. The hotelier who donated over $1 million to Trump to get his job. Well, not to get his job, but
one can infer that $1 million was not frowned upon.
Yeah. Let's talk about how...
Didn't hurt.
Let's talk about how Hunter didn't deserve that job.
Oh my gosh.
So, in Taylor's testimony, he said, but President Trump did insist that President Zelensky go to a microphone and say he is opening investigations of Biden 2016's elections interference, and that President Zelensky should want to do this himself. So, that's the main stuff. I mean, just some things. The former acting AG, Matthew Whitaker, the guy that came up with that toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a fun guy. He got on TV and argued that abuse of power is not a crime.
What?
Yep.
Okay.
And, okay, fine, it's not, but, sometimes it is.
And I'm struggling with when not, but okay.
So the other thing happened recently was House Resolution 660, and that's where they approved the impeachment proceedings. 232 yeas to 190, I can't tell if that's a 6. I think it's a 6. 96 no's. Nays, if you would. 2 Dems voted nay, as long with all the Republicans. So...
But one independent voted yes.
Correct.
Who was a former Republican.
That's true. That's true. We should talk about that.
I'd forgotten about that.
In this, they laid out some of the rules for how this is going to go forward. And some of the stuff they decided was basically permanent select committees on, like, the intelligence, foreign affairs, ways and means, the fiduciary. All those committees are going to be continuing their investigations because they are investigating the president. They are going to open this to the public eventually. The chair the chair, it's kind of interesting. The head of the committee, as well as the ranking minority member,
Mm-hmm.
will get 45 minutes to interview the people,
Okay.
if you will, and then everyone else on the committee gets the 5 minutes.
Traditional 5.
The traditional 5.
Huh.
That was one of the things they decided to do.
Okay.
It also gave Nadler. He also gave himself the ability to, I'm not really sure how, and it doesn't specify anything, gave himself the ability to do something to the White House if the White House is trying to prevent witnesses from testifying.
Interesting.
And I know I'm being vague, but let me assure you, there's no more right now. There's no other things. There's a 3-hour-long video that I will link that I've got through some of. I skipped a lot of it because it was just too busy of a week. But you can see when Nadler talks about his rules and everything else. So, it's all interesting. Now, the next guy that's probably going to give deposition, or maybe he already did, is this Tim Morrison.
Okay.
And he's the top Russian aide to the president. Supposedly, he's supposed to be a Trump guy.
Okay.
You know, definitely a Trump guy. He said that this all wasn't illegal, but
I think I've read this.
said the optics of it all were terrible. But he backs up Bill Taylor in his opening statements with most of what he says. Now,
interesting.
Yeah. So he's gonna be. He was with the White House National Security Advisor. He was, and he resigned on 10/30, so October 30th, and he was on the call with him. But he also went to whatever, the head of council,
Okay.
and reported it too. Not because he said it was illegal,
Because the optics were
because
terrible.
the optics were terrible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sounds like someone afraid to lose their job.
The other
Well,
thing,
he doesn't have to be afraid because he resigned.
right.
Huh.
The other thing they proved was the president will get to respond to allegations in writing.
Okay.
So, yeah, we got.
And remember, everybody. Another thing I thought about, the Republicans are complaining about the due process not being there. Like, you don't get due process during the investigatory process of like a grand jury, right, or the prosecution's investigation, during depositions and whatnot. You get due process during the trial, which is in the Senate.
Yeah.
Like, we're not there. That doesn't even, that means nothing. It's never been an issue in any other impeachment proceeding that I've seen.
Right. So what's going to happen now, though, is the right will be able to call their own witnesses and stuff.
Yeah.
Not sure what to do.
I mean, to be fair, it's fine.
Yeah, totally.
Let it come out.
So what we're probably looking at now is a few more weeks of depositions. We're going to get the NSC lawyer, and I think John Bolton's going to come.
Okay.
And then maybe mid to late November, that's when we'll probably get the public hearings from the House Intelligence. That's kind of the main one we'll see.
Yeah.
And we're likely actually get to see Vindman, Taylor do a public hearing. We'll also probably see the foreign Ukraine ambassador, Yovanovitch,
Wow.
come. And it's interesting. And all this happened relatively quick because on October 25th, the judge ruled in favor of the House. It seems so weird, in favor of the United States.
Right.
That the impeachment proceedings were legal, and then it forced the White House to turn over the Mueller report unredacted, as well as other information.
There you go.
So, I mean, things are happening.
That's the thing, is that it took the executive branch pitting themselves against the legislative.
Well,
and then the judiciary siding with them to make it happen. To keep this process going.
I don't even know what the hell they're doing. Excuse my language, but Bill Barr is going to start investigating his own Justice Department.
They already have.
I thought that was just last week.
They're investigating the
Russian investigation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something totally different?
I believe so. I believe it was like, October 20th, so a couple weeks ago. I'm old newsing a little bit, but I just don't feel like we ever said that on the show.
No, I don't think we did.
And again, Trump is like king of distraction and baloney, and
we're missing a lot of things.
I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated that everybody's having a hard time putting these pieces together because it seems. I don't. Is it wrong? I think this looks pretty cut and dry.
At the end of the day, everybody should get to have their say and their witnesses out there. I do firmly believe that, with regard to this continuing on, and as much as possible being made public so the public can form their own opinions. But I mean, you have to admit, everyone likes to talk about, or flail about these conspiracy theories. I see all kinds of things that are not based on any sort of fact, but to have two people whose livelihoods and lives are on the line testify under oath, providing these details, two others at least, not completely refute any, or at all refute anything that's being said by these career individuals. May not say it's illegal in the sense that they're trying to save themselves from something, but it's just very hard for me to believe that there's nothing there if these people are willing to come forward and talk, and the credibility levels there, and the fact that the Republicans are not trying to sit there and say, they're not saying, hey, it was a perfect call. The president's saying that.
That's the other thing. The
they're
Republicans
trying to just attack process, and the people trying to offer testimony.
The mood or the attitude has really gone, on the right, has really gone from, well, there's no quid pro quos to quid pro quos happen all the time.
Yeah, right. That's just it. I mean, it's sort of like this flip-flop of, well, it didn't happen, but now that it's blatantly obvious it did happen.
And that's when that Sondland guy said, President Trump's been very clear, there are no quid pro quos. Thus confirming in my mind that President Trump does not know what quid pro quo means.
Well, or he's just saying it because it had to be said.
I know, if they would have came out and said, yeah, there's a quid pro quo, it was that there is corruption in Ukraine. That's why we're following all the proper channels to do it. I'm doing it as an Obama voice because that's what you would believe it in.
And Burisma may be part of a larger investigation, not directly involved with a particular candidate's family.
I just don't know why.
Just in general. There's got to be other guilty people if he's guilty. Like, come on.
It's just frustrating.
It's crazy.
If you listen to I think it was the first episode we did, Burisma was investigated for 10 months after they got rid of the prosecutor that Biden, I don't remember his name. I want to say it was Stalinsky, but
something like that. They all have ski at the end, so I get confused.
Go back and watch the episode. But Burisma was, again, the liquid natural gas company that Hunter Biden
was on the board for ethics.
Yeah, and I won't defend that at all.
No, he made a lot of money. We talked about that, though. You should listen to that if you don't know, because both sides of it, Paul Manafort made millions of dollars in Ukraine because that's where you can make a lot of money advising on politics. And your advisement there, as someone from the West, offers a lot of credibility in a country that is Soviet bloc yet has a legitimate, fairly legitimate democracy. So there's a lot there, but it's not illegal in that sense. And again, we're talking about the difference between someone making a lot of money legally and somebody trying to illegally use your and my tax dollars to get someone to investigate a political rival in their family.
You show me Gordon Sondland's qualifications and I'll show you Hunter Biden's. That's my pushback.
Sure. Absolutely. I'd say that you probably going to have more in one side versus the other. And,
I agree.
I
agree.
It's amazing.
Well, no need to beat a dead horse.
No, this has been fun. I've learned a lot. This is interesting. Thank you very much for giving me some of those synopses.
It's a nice refresher too to get the context because again, my prediction: he's gonna get impeached in the House.
Correct.
Never.
Senate trial will happen,
and never ever will he get removed from office.
Correct.
Impeachment.
Correct.
So, are the Republicans going to benefit from this? I don't know.
Depends on what comes out over the course of the rest of the public depositions.
I don't think
where public opinions go.
I don't think Democrats benefit from this at all.
No.
I think they have to do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
You can't let... I heard Stephen Colbert...
I think it's politically dangerous for them.
Stephen Colbert interviewed Nancy Pelosi, and Stephen Colbert said, I used to always think... I didn't want to see Trump get impeached because I thought that was too easy for American people, that they needed to vote him out. No, that is not correct. Well,
impeachment is regardless of the vote. People always, yeah, that's another thing that
Yes.
keeps getting said, is that it's to nullify the 2016 election. Guess what? The 2016 election happened, regardless of whatever you think about that. President Trump has been in office for 3 years, right?
It's so scary.
And regardless of what's happened in that time he's been in office, the impeachment, even if he got removed from office, has nothing to do with the 2016 election. It's regardless of the next election too.
I don't even think if he gets impeached that means he won't win the election.
He may win the election.
I know.
It could make his base even more strong.
But at least I can go to sleep tonight knowing the Democrats stood on their ground. They held their integrity. They did the right thing.
Yeah.
Republicans are lacking on integrity right now.
I'm telling you right now, if a Democratic president had done this and was on the hot seat for this, I would be behind the Republicans doing the impeachment proceedings.
Yeah.
100%. Because it's not right to do that.
And if there had been anything to Hunter Biden working for Burisma, if there had been clear ties of corruption or something, I would be against that too. Personally, I don't.
Correct.
I think Biden's a grenade at this point.
He's not helping the Dems right now.
No, and that's what you see. Warren's gaining in the polls. Warren, Biden, Buttigieg, and then Biden.
I think, yeah, in Iowa at least.
Fourth, yeah, it was an Iowa poll. That's crazy, guys.
So, good for them.
I know.
All right, man. It's
been
fun.
Yep. Have a nice day. Have a nice week. Next week we say more words.
Yep. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think.
Share.
Let us know if you need any topics to be covered.
Have a nice day, everybody.
Thanks. Thank you.